make damn sure you avoid the backwoods of eastern Kentucky. By darthvarda. Driving through the backwoods of eastern Kentucky in the dead of night is the most terrifying thing I've ever done. Anyone who's ever been in the area knows exactly what I'm talking about. All the light from the moon and stars is blocked by the thick vegetation and hills, so it's pitch black. There's history in those hills, a lot of history, and this energy fills the place with this crazy bad vibe. It's like the very land is pissed at you, and it wants you dead. The roads aren't well traveled, and you'll be hard-pressed to see a single car driving them at night. Cell service out there, at least for me, spotty at best, non-existent at worst, and you pray to whatever you believe in that your car doesn't break down, knowing full well the folks who live smattered across the hills are isolated private people, knowing that they wouldn't be very happy seeing you wandering onto their property in the dead of night. None too happy at all. It's what my mum calls bad country. One word. She always told me to avoid the area if I could, saying that I'd likely be murdered or worse out there. And I've heard stories too. Stories about people who get out of their car to help a stranded motorist only to be ambushed, robbed, kidnapped, and or murdered. Stories about strange lights and ghost killers and vanishing hitchhikers and crazy inbred hillbilly families. There are said to be hundreds of unreported deaths out there. People just vanishing off the face of the earth, never to be seen again. I've always avoided driving through those hills. But one night I found myself driving straight down KY52S instead of I-75S, straight into those hills, straight into those hills, straight into their darkness. Around midnight, I got a message from my mother that my dad had been taken to the hospital and his condition was serious. I immediately jumped out of bed and into my car, despite my mum telling me to wait until morning to drive down. I lived up in Richmond at the time, while my parents were down in Hazard. It's a little under a 2-hour drive via the I-75S and a little over via KY52S. That night, though, I-75S was closed due to an overnight bridge reconstruction project, so I had to take KY52 southbound, and it goes through some pretty gnarly bad country. I figured that nothing would happen, that it'd be a smooth yet anxiety-ridden 2-hour-ish trip, but there was this dread that I couldn't shake boiling up in my gut, urging me to wait until morning. But I didn't. I couldn't. I had to see my dad. I got from Richmond to Irvine just fine, driving the winding road and hilly terrain with ease, going faster than the speed limit. It was from Irvine to Jackson that things took a turn for the worst. First off, it was dark. Really fucking dark, and even with my bright lights on, they still only barely lit up the surrounding area. The constantly curving roads didn't help either. I found myself slowing down, having to navigate through the dark and around the switchbacks and turns, inclines and depressions, hoping to God I didn't run off a road or hit an oncoming vehicle. And the dread was at the forefront of everything now. Sure, it could have been exasperated by worry for my dad, but there's something about those hills. Something evil. I was really fucking afraid. The radio was dipping in and out, so I put in a CD, Dio, and tried to drown out the fear with music. But after the first song, I turned off the stereo completely and drove in silence, all my senses on high alert. It felt wrong. It felt like I was being watched. Every so often, I would see a bright flash of light in the woods, like campfire, but brighter. And I swear at one point between Crystal and Beattyville, there was this pale and hairless and huge humanoid running after my car next to the road. Swear I saw it in the rearview mirror. It disappeared into the darkness and the trees when I braked and spun around in my seat. 30 minutes out of Beattyville, I saw a kid. He was wearing a yellow shirt, blue shorts, and a red jacket with the hood up, colors that remind me of Superman. He wasn't wearing shoes. That bothered me. I flicked my brights down to their normal strength and slowed to a crawl, wondering what the hell this kid, who looked to be under 10, was doing out in the middle of bumfuck nowhere. I made sure that my doors were locked, cracked my windows, and asked him if he was okay as I rolled toward him. He didn't respond. I glanced down at my phone. No service. Shit. I asked him if he was okay again, and he looked up at me quickly, making his hood fall down. He was crying. I slowed to a stop, and he immediately ran over, sticking dirty fingers into the crack of the window, pounding on the door. He was screaming something about how they were haunting him, and that they were going to let the monster eat him, and they were watching us now, waiting, just beyond the darkness. At this point, I was seriously freaking out, and I might have been screaming too. I tried to roll my window up, trying not to hurt the kid, but he wouldn't release his grip on the window. I think he was trying to break it. A bright light flashed onto us, and the kid screamed even louder, letting go of the car, and began running down the road back towards Beattyville. And, I'm ashamed to say, I took off. I was afraid I was going to die and become another statistic of these hills. In my rearview mirror, I watched as what looked like 3 men in hooded robes ran out onto the road. The spotlight one of them was holding was trained onto my car and hit the mirror at an angle that blinded me, but it looked like the other 2 were going after the kid. I blinked and looked back towards the road, speeding like a bat out of hell. I pulled off in Jackson and drove straight to the police station. 2 detectives and an FBI agent who had been in town working on a liaison listened to me with grave faces. When I was finished, the FBI agent thanked me, then told me that the kid had gone missing the day before from Bible camp near the Kentucky River. He said that's why he was in town in the first place. Apparently, the kid and his friends were out playing hide-and-seek in the woods in broad daylight when he just disappeared. He was wearing yellow, blue, and red, like Superman. The strange thing is, his footsteps just stopped, and his shoes were still there. It was like he was lifted off the ground by the air. It was strange. 6 cop cars with twice as many cops, the agent, and a search and rescue team were dispatched into the area within minutes of me reporting what I'd seen. I drove to a local diner and ended up staying in Jackson until morning, making the 40-minute drive to Hazard after the sun rose. After hearing why it took me so long to get down there, my mother was beside herself with panic, but was also glad I was okay, telling me I did what I had to do to survive, that I was brave and wasn't a coward. My dad ended up making a full recovery. If you're wondering, I do feel like a fucking coward. If I regret not letting that kid into my car, the answer is a resounding yes, I do. I am. It haunts me to this day. But I don't know what I would have done if I stayed there any longer. And I don't know if either of us would have made it out alive. No trace of that kid was ever found.